The complementary skills is how we help to sharpen each other. It's how we refine each other's character, not in the way that we're similar and alike. And so harmony is more about how those complementary skills work together, right, to build a greater picture than collectively than what you had individually. And so that's why I said dating somebody or thinking that you found a person who you have deemed to be the one just based on the fact that your personalities gel or you think is compatible, why it will not necessarily be the strongest foundation to have to base and say that this is a person that you can actually partner up in life with, that you can be able to kind of walk and flow in the same direction and be able to pivot when there are moments in life where you got to move fast, right? You need more.
You'll be my forever friend. This love will never end. No, nothing can come between us.
We've been talking about how do you find the one, and we've been talking about 4 different ways that people choose the people who they feel like they can partner up with in life. The first level is choosing based on your preferences, right? So that's really easy. If you're a woman, you like tall men. If you're a man who likes maybe women with long hair or short hair, certain physical attributes, right? Preferences, you can have that. It's not a problem. But it is not something that can truly hold a relationship together. So we kind of want to, go a step further to use our discernment to be able to engage with people who have some depth to them and what we're using, right, to be able to kind of assess whether the person that we're engaging with is an actual person that we can live our entire life with and be able to navigate this life and fulfill our purpose with. So, second tier is personality, that there are people who choose people based on their personality. I'm sure that you've heard many people say, I just want someone who I am compatible with, definitely in this modern day dating age when lots of people who are meeting people on the internet, right, or through matching services, there's a whole science and whole research around finding people who are compatible, that you match each other. And we talked about how that's good and it's fine, but you can have people who are compatible that still cannot get on the same page, right? And being in a relationship is like this, and I write it in my book because I heard it from a very good friend, and I said, wow, that was articulated in such a great way. He was saying people try to, harmonize and walk together in a relationship. You need to get and be in the same book, right? Sometimes you can be in the same book, and that's good and well and dandy, and but it's better if you can get on the same page, right? That's better to be on the same page because a book has lots of pages, right? But at least you're in the same book. But if you can get on the same page, that'd be great. And if you can get on the same paragraph, and if you can get on the same line, then that's really great, right? And anybody in a relationship knows how challenging that can be, especially when you have 2 people who are supposed to complement each other, by the way, right? The complementary skills is how we help to sharpen each other. It's how we refine each other's character, not in the way that we're similar and alike. And so harmony is more about how those complementary skills work together, right, to build a greater picture than collectively than what you had individually. And so that's why I said dating somebody or thinking that you found a person who you have deemed to be the one just based on the fact that your personalities gel or you think is compatible, why it will not necessarily be the strongest foundation to have to base and say that this is a person that you can actually partner up in life with, that you can be able to kind of walk and flow in the same direction and be able to pivot when there are moments in life where you got to move fast, right? You need more. And we were talking about character, and that the difference between personality and character is that when you're looking and assessing somebody based on their character, is that a person's character is based up on their mental and moral, right, qualities or ethics. And that's important because we want mental well-being. We want people who have good moral fiber and good moral ethics, because there's going to be plenty of times where, in your relationship, there are going to be people who come in to test that relationship, people who come in to, on purpose, try to, break your relationship. And unless there's strong moral fiber and belief and character in that relationship, many people buckle, many people fall, And I think even outside of somebody trying to come in to cause dissension in the relationship, having good moral character can also, I guess, tell how a person acts towards you in the relationship, right? So if you have a relationship, let's just say between a man and a woman, and we know in relationships that each of us play different roles and we serve in different ways. And if a person isn't morally, have good moral ethics and is not a person who upholds any kind of like moral code of ethics or belief, then if they deem whatever you do to be lesser than, or your positioning, they might not honor your positioning, they might not cherish what it is that you have to offer, and they might treat the person in a way that is not good, right? So what we were talking about before, my unfortunate brief interruption due to technology, was what I believe to be one of the highest stages that you can use to be able to approach finding the person who is best fit for you, which is looking at a person's nature. And one of my favorite quotes in the Bible is that every fruit reproduces every seed reproduces after its own kind, right? And that you shall know them by their fruits. I think that's such an undeniable truth, at the end of the day. And that's why I kind of love, just to go back to the quote that I presented earlier on to you guys, is, and let me read it again to you guys so that I don't paraphrase it. It says, do not fall in love with a personality before you have been a consistent student, observer of their character and the life experience they get as a result of their nature, right? And we talked about nature being something that's innate to someone. It's the essential qualities. And a person's nature, a person's character is going to reap certain experiences in life. It is going to reflect in the results of their life experience. It's kind of like a principle that you can't hide from, you can't avoid. And so I love that because it's something that's, what's the best way to say it? It's self-evident, in that way. And sometimes, as I was saying before, sometimes it takes time for a person's true character to be shown. But I think when we start out from the beginning, right, not necessarily using some of those, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe lower level way of trying to find a person that you feel like could be someone that you can partner in life with. as far as preferences and personality, but start to navigate those relationships, trying to identify the character of the person and and their nature. And once you do that, and you're okay to kind of because the personality and the preferences, those are more tied into our own expectations or our prejudgment of or the idea of being with someone or being in a relationship. It's more tethered, right, to our expectations. Whereas character and nature, we just want to see, I just want to see. I know and as well as my friendship with Ben, but before I was in, my forever friendship with Ben, the people that were potential partners to me or wanted to date me and things like that, I never really was so tied into okay, we're going to be boyfriend and girlfriend or this is going to go towards marriage or anything like that. I just knew that you were going to show me yourself and I was going to show you who I am. So eventually I'm going to see you for all of who you are. I firmly believe in the scriptures and that there's nothing that is in the dark that won't come to light. And I think the more that you position yourself in thinking like that or having that type of mentality, then the easier it is for you to see, right, certain things that people might be trying to keep hidden from you. So it's coming in with a more open mentality, right? And a more trusting mentality. And I know it's hard for people to trust, especially if you've been hurt before in relationships. But I just took one of my very, I call her my BFF. I said, you my new BFF now. And I was having a conversation with her and I was telling her that, trust, when you really think about it, it's really just a process that's really between you and God, and I was telling her that I fully trust Ben. Don't get me wrong; he's a stand-up character, and he's pretty. Anybody will tell you, his friends, his family, he's consistent. If they call him up today, he's pretty much consistent. We've grown and we've transformed and we've elevated, thank God. But his core part of him and who he is has been consistent since I've seen him since I was since we were both 17. And that's definitely evidence of the fruit of his nature and his character. And that helps to affirm my trusting in him. However, that trust is a string that's connected to my trusting of God and knowing that I am God's child, I am his daughter, and that if someone comes to try to hurt me, well, then I feel sorry for them because I am a daughter of the King. And if you want to hurt me, then you have to answer to him. And so because I keep that at the center of my heart and my mind, the trust is deep in God. And then therefore that trust allows me to be trusting to my husband and open to the process, knowing that there's nothing that is really going to happen that can truly harm or break me because God is always going to have me. So when it comes to that trust really has to start from that space. And I think when you navigate a relationship and approach it looking to observe a person's character and looking to observe their nature, that you're not calculating or wanting, I guess, the turnaround to be on your time clock, but you actually leave space saying, God, you're going to reveal this thing to me. And of course, act wisely. Like in the beginning of the quote, it says, don't fall in love with a personality, right? Before you have been a consistent, student observer of the character. So that means that sometimes we do thrust ourselves too quickly and invest too quickly into relationships that and we haven't given enough space and time for the truth to be revealed. And then it's like, okay, well, that person didn't show me who they were. And it's like, well, no, maybe they were showing you who they were, but you weren't paying attention. Maybe we already had a certain idea or a certain outcome that we were already married to that we couldn't divorce in time enough, or couldn't divorce, maybe not in time enough, but we couldn't divorce and put aside so that the truth can be revealed to us. So anybody who kind of, navigates it in that way where it's like, okay, no, I'm looking for your character. I'm looking for what do you believe the essential things in life are, and do those essential values or core characteristics that you have, do they align, right, with the Word of God? Do they align with the will of God? I remember having a conversation, I think it might have been when I used to do my Interact coaching workshops in person, and I was telling some of the young ladies that were present who were saying, well, no, of course, love is an action word, and I'm going to look to see if his, talking about the person, or maybe person they were currently with or future person that they wish to be with, if his words line up with his actions, and then I'll know, And I said, there's a step beyond that, though. There's a step beyond that, because you can go into a relationship and fall in love with a personality, and for a while, they seem to be consistent. Their words line up with their actions for a certain season. And then all of a sudden that could stop, right? So I was saying to them, you have to go beyond that to where that person's words, do they line up with the principles of God? Now that's different, because the principles of God echo throughout eternity. It goes even beyond time, right? And you can't really calculate them, right? There's not necessarily a predictable formula, right? That you can kind of like, I'm gonna do this and this and this and always get this right outcome. No, it's something that is created in a way where it has to be that the person is committed to a continual relationship with God, a continual willingness to stay in tune and in flow, because that's the beauty of the relationship, right? Because the gift is the relationship, not the outcome. And so I think in the same way that our relationship dynamic excels and is enriched when we surrender or submit to the process that God has for us to get to know Him and get closer to Him, it's no different. It's the same kind of process when we are developing the relationships that we have down here, especially those that go into and elevate into marriage. That no, it's not this predictable, calculative thing, because we are transcendent human beings. Like we transform and we go through so many seasons and we change. I'm definitely not the same person that my husband met at 17, and he's definitely not that same person. But the principles that we use to apply to adjust and transition throughout those seasons are. Right? And then each season we take on the principle, and then it elevates us and it transforms us to be made new, right? And those new people don't ever feel like they grow apart from each other, because we're both pulling from the same source, and we're pulling and using those same principles that, because they're beyond time, they could be applied through every season of life. And we find, each other at each stage, and we delight in discovering who that new person is, and it makes the relationship be continually interesting and continue to delight in each stage that we discover. And it's a wonderful experience, and it's quite the opposite from what my husband likes to call the devil's hamster wheel, right? Of the patterns that you go through when you disconnect from God or you disconnect from love. There's a different pathway and different experiences and different outcomes. And I was just saying to a recent coaching session that I had to the people, the participants that were on, I said, it's so interesting that in the world, sometimes we're led to believe or we think that what's common is natural, right? And then those two things, because it's a common experience that is happening to the masses, then that's noted as just a natural process. And then now it becomes distorted and known as the truth. But there are really only two pathways, right? We know that there is the kingdom of God and the kingdom of Satan, or the kingdom of the devil and the enemy. And yeah, in both those roads, there's different variations, right, of that pathway and results that you get from either making your choice. But oftentimes, right, like for instance, the defaulted idea of like when you get married, oh, the relationship just, it's better when you're single, because maybe you'll be having more intimacy, you'll be having more sexual intimacy. Life just starts to kind of, just suck you dry, basically, and you fall into this mundane type of relationship where you're not really enjoying each other. There's a lot of people who really feel like that, and go through that process where maybe the man is trying to go out to the bar or go somewhere just to escape his wife, and the wife is just coping, and she's probably physically going through the process of doing things, but internally she is in turmoil. Right? All of these things that people are most definitely going through, but there's a reason why they're going through that. There's a reason why. And when there are no solutions, or there are no skill sets or tools provided, and these are the things that are constantly reoccurring, not knowing that they're occurring because, wait, hold on, you chose a road that was outside the pathway of God. And let me tell you this, it's not just the people, it is also the people who have declared salvation. It is the people who have declared, I believe in Jesus Christ, because they took on the salvation, but they might not have took on totally the healing part of it, right? There's people who get saved, they take on Christ, and they can go to heaven with, not having, either broken bodies or broken hearts. That won't deny them, their entrance into heaven. However, how they experience life down here could be a hell of another sort, right? So with that acceptance of Christ, there is an invitation of healing. There is access to healing, but the transformation, right? The necessary things, the accountability that has to come into place. Many people avoid that, so they resist the healing and they don't get it. So even the people who have accepted Christ can still be on that defaulted system, right? And they might not be able to, they won't be able to experience the truth, in that if you have decided to commit to each other wholeheartedly and develop your relationship in a space that God has endorsed and God has blessed, then there should be an elevation that you experience, not a decline when you get married. Sex should not become worse when you get married. It should become better, especially if it's a marital union that's under God, because you experience an elevation, right? You experience an elevation. Your purpose and your dream shouldn't be thwarted, or derailed because now you're married and the responsibilities now take over those spaces. No, the two of you guys are supposed to provide support for each other and facilitate to be able to accomplish your dreams further, because now two is better than one. So that's the truth. But if there aren't many people talking about the principles that are needed to be placed in the relationship for people to experience these truths, then what's going to be, right, spread is more so the opposite, right? And the defaulted system that occurs when people don't align themselves in the truth or don't align themselves in God or don't align themselves in love.